India's foreign policy has always been a subject of intense scrutiny and debate. The current global landscape, marked by shifting power dynamics and geopolitical complexities, has brought India's strategic choices into even sharper focus. At the heart of this intricate dance is India's relationship with the United States, a partnership marked by both promise and pragmatism. The frequency of external affairs. Minister S. Jaishankar's visits to the US has fueled speculation and ignited discussions about India's foreign policy priorities. These visits, often undertaken amidst a flurry of diplomatic activity, underscore the importance both nations attach to this crucial bilateral relationship. However, the optics of these frequent trips have not always been met with universal acclaim. Critics, both within India and internationally, have raised questions about the tangible outcomes of these engagements, prompting a closer examination of the substance versus the spectacle of this diplomatic waltz. As India navigates a world grappling with uncertainty and transformation, understanding the nuances of its relationship with the US, particularly through the lens of Jaishankar's diplomatic forays, becomes paramount. S. Jaishankar's tenure as External Affairs Minister has been marked by an unprecedented focus on strengthening ties with the United States. His frequent trips to Washington, sometimes multiple times a year, have become a defining feature of his diplomatic calendar. One notable visit occurred in December 2024, just as the US was preparing for a new presidential term. This visit, shrouded in speculation, fueled rumors of India seeking a coveted invitation for Prime Minister Modi to visit the US. While these rumors were later dispelled, the incident highlighted the intense scrutiny surrounding Jaishankar's US engagements. Another significant visit took place in October 2024, where Jaishankar engaged in high-level discussions with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. These talks, encompassing a wide range of bilateral and global issues, underscored the growing convergence of interests between the two nations on matters ranging from trade to security. Jaishankar's frequent trips to the US are driven by a multifaceted agenda. They reflect India's desire to deepen economic ties, enhance defense cooperation, and forge closer strategic alignment with the US in the face of a rising China. These visits provide a platform for high-level dialogue, allowing both sides to address concerns, explore areas of convergence, and lay the groundwork for future collaboration.
Check one, check two, check.
While the Indian government maintains that Jaishankar's frequent US visits are crucial for advancing national interests, these diplomatic overtures have not been without their detractors. Critics, including prominent voices like Subramanian Swamy, have questioned the effectiveness of these trips, pointing to a perceived lack of concrete achievements. One of the main criticisms levied against these visits is the lack of tangible outcomes. Despite the flurry of meetings and pronouncements, critics argue that there have been no significant breakthroughs in areas such as trade, technology transfer, or visa regulations, issues of paramount importance to India. Furthermore, some argue that these frequent trips project an image of India being overly reliant on the US, potentially undermining its strategic autonomy. This perception, they contend, could limit India's ability to maneuver effectively in the regional and global arena. The optics of these visits, particularly the perceived eagerness to engage with the US, have also drawn criticism. Some view it as an attempt to appease the US, potentially at the cost of India's independent foreign policy stance. This, they argue, could undermine India's credibility as a leading voice in the developing world. Assessing the true impact of Jaishankar's US visits requires looking beyond the optics and delving into the substance of these engagements. While grand pronouncements and photo opportunities might grab headlines, it is the behind-the-scenes negotiations and the incremental progress made on key issues that truly matter. One area where some progress has been witnessed is defense cooperation. The US has emerged as a major defense supplier to India, and Jaishankar's visits have helped solidify these ties. Agreements on joint military exercises and intelligence sharing demonstrate a growing convergence of security interests. Another area where some headway has been made is in fostering people-to-people ties. Jaishankar's engagements with the Indian diaspora in the US and his efforts to address visa-related concerns have been welcomed by many. These initiatives, while often overlooked, play a crucial role in strengthening the bilateral relationship. However, critics argue that progress on crucial issues like trade and technology transfer has been sluggish. Despite India's desire for greater access to the US market and advanced technologies, negotiations have been bogged down by disagreements over tariffs, intellectual property rights, and data localization. Section 5, A Tale of Two Giants, India's balancing act with China and the US. India's foreign policy is increasingly characterized by its delicate balancing act between the US and China. While India shares common concerns with the US about China's assertive rise, it is also wary of being seen as aligning too closely with Washington. Jaishankar's approach to China and the US reflects this delicate balancing act. While critical of China's actions along the line of actual control and its growing influence in the Indo-Pacific, he has also emphasized the need for dialogue and diplomacy to manage differences. In contrast, Jaishankar's engagements with the US have been more frequent and wide-ranging, reflecting the growing convergence of interests between the two countries. However, India has maintained its strategic autonomy, refusing to be drawn into any containment strategy against China. This nuanced approach is driven by India's desire to safeguard its own interests and maintain its strategic autonomy. India recognizes the importance of a strong partnership with the US to counterbalance China's growing influence, but it is also keen to avoid getting entangled in a great power rivalry. Section 6. Bridging the Divide. Navigating the imbalance in US-India relations. Despite the growing convergence of interests between India and the US, there remains a perception of an imbalance in the relationship. This imbalance stems from a number of factors, including differing priorities, historical baggage, and the domestic political realities of both countries. One key area of imbalance is in the realm of trade. While the US is a major trading partner for India, the trade relationship is heavily skewed in favor of the US. India has long sought greater access to the US market for its goods and services, but progress on this front has been slow. Another area of concern is the US's approach to the South Asian region. India has often expressed its frustration with the US's continued support for Pakistan, which India views as a major source of instability in the region. This perceived tilt towards Pakistan has been a long-standing irritant in the US-India relationship. Moreover, there is a sense that the US often takes India for granted, focusing its attention on other parts of the world. This perception was particularly acute during the Trump administration, which often seemed more interested in courting China than in deepening ties with India.
Check, check. Check 1, check 2, check, check.
Section 7. Charting a new course. Strategic shifts for India's global ascendancy. As India seeks to enhance its global standing and secure its place at the high table of international relations, a reassessment of its foreign policy priorities and a recalibration of its approach towards key partners like the US become imperative. One crucial shift involves moving beyond a transactional approach to foreign policy towards a more strategic and long-term vision. This entails identifying core national interests, articulating them clearly on the global stage, and pursuing them with greater resolve and consistency. India must also shed its historical reticence and embrace a more proactive and assertive foreign policy posture. This requires engaging more directly with key global players, shaping the discourse on issues of importance, and leveraging its growing economic and military might to advance its interests. Furthermore, India needs to invest in strengthening its soft power capabilities. This includes promoting its culture and values, fostering greater people-to-people contacts, and projecting a more positive and engaging image of India on the world stage. Section 8. Towards a more fruitful partnership, recommendations for a results-oriented approach to ensure that Jaishankar's frequent US visits translate into tangible outcomes and advance India's national interests. A more results-oriented approach is needed, and this requires setting clear objectives for each engagement, engaging in frank and open dialogue, and holding both sides accountable for delivering on commitments. India should prioritize areas where there is a strong convergence of interests with the US, such as defense cooperation, counter-terrorism, and maritime security. In these areas, concrete agreements on joint initiatives, technology transfer, and intelligence sharing should be pursued aggressively. On contentious issues like trade and technology transfer, India needs to adopt a more assertive negotiating stance. This involves clearly articulating its demands, leveraging its market size and economic potential, and being prepared to walk away from deals that are not in its best interests. Finally, India should leverage its diaspora in the US to advance its interests. This includes mobilizing the Indian-American community to lobby for policies favorable to India, fostering closer business ties, and promoting greater understanding between the two countries.
Check, check. Check 1, check 2, check, check.
Section 9, Conclusion, India's Global Highwire Act. India's foreign policy is at a crossroads. As the world grapples with unprecedented challenges and opportunities, India must navigate a complex geopolitical landscape with astuteness and agility. The frequent visits of External Affairs Minister Jaishankar to the US underscore the importance of this bilateral relationship, but also highlight the need for a more balanced, strategic, and results-oriented approach. India's balancing act between the US and China will continue to define its foreign policy in the years to come. By adroitly managing its relationships with these two global powers while simultaneously strengthening ties with other key partners, India can secure its interests and emerge as a leading voice in the shaping of a new world order. The road ahead is fraught with challenges, but also pregnant with possibilities. By embracing a more confident, assertive, and strategic foreign policy, India can fulfill its potential as a leading power and play a pivotal role in shaping a more just, equitable, and sustainable global order.